This is Game Set Match Kentucky Episode 9. It's a special edition recorded June 6, 2019, entitled The Bowling Green Open Rainout. Hey everybody, it's time for a special breaking news edition of Game Set Match Kentucky, where we talk about all things related to the Central Kentucky Tennis Series and maybe a whole lot more that you never asked for. This is June 6th, 2019. I'm Chris Godby, the chairman of the CKTS, where the lines are good and sandbagging is for golf. Here with me today is the tournament director of the week in the CKTS. It's Chad Young calling in from near Bowling Green. And today we're going to talk about the postponement of the Bowling Green Open. We'll look at a few dates of what's coming up in tennis around the area. Also, our sponsor for this episode is LakeNet Media Web Hosting. If you or your business needs a web host, call LakeNet Media at 757-LakeNet. That's 757-525-3638. Chad, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Feel like I was just here.
Yeah, you were just here, and this is the second time this week, and I'll let you know that your pay is the same today as it was on Monday.
Okay, so I'm a salaried worker for the week, huh?
Absolutely.
I probably get paid as much as I do to be a tournament director.
And these are definitely not the circumstances in which you want to record a second podcast in the same week. So can you tell us what's going on?
Well, we had to make the decision today to about whether or not we were going to try to get the tournament in this weekend. Draws are usually released on Thursday evening, and I really didn't want to go. Looking at the forecast, I'll be honest with you, I really didn't want to go through all the hassle of doing a draw if the forecast was as gloomy as it has been, and so kind of made the decision that we were going to make a decision by today and just see if there was even an ounce of hope. And things have not gotten any better since we talked earlier this week. In fact, I think they have actually gotten worse in terms of the rain chance percentages. They've stayed north of 70% for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and so we made the decision to move the tournament, to postpone it. I guess what's maybe a little bit different or a little non-traditional is that we've decided to move it to the end of the season rather than the normal rain date, which is usually the week after.
There is a lot of tennis going on, including the league championships.
Yeah, the USTA's 18 and over league championship. So anyone who played an 18 and over league, their state tournament is next weekend. The 40 and over is the following weekend, the same weekend as the Glasgow tournament. But I mean, just people may not understand that when you lose a tournament, lose a weekend, your retention rate is probably not much higher than 50%. Just because people's schedules, generally, I think this is the third one I've had where we've actually just had to call the weekend. One time it was actually on Saturday that we had to call it, but generally you don't lose more than half, but it's pretty close to half of your field. You do get some people who couldn't play this weekend who are able to play, and they'll sign up, but it doesn't come anywhere close to breaking even. And so we felt that not only were we going to lose probably more than normal, from a logistics standpoint, we were going to lose some key people in terms of the people who helped me run the tournaments. And so we felt like it made more sense, even though September is kind of out of it's at the very end of the season, and it's really a new tournament date, and the weather can be a little different, and when people are back in school, they might be less likely to play. We still felt it was the best decision was to move it to September.
And you mentioned that you wanted to make this decision early because you didn't want to go through the process of setting up a complete draw and then having to redo it. Well, what people may not understand is that it takes hours upon hours to schedule these draws to decide on fair pairings, and then to run through the all the time schedules and everything so that everything works out for people that are playing multiple events and all of that. So it's a tough undertaking to schedule it, and it's really not something you want to do and then have to throw it straight in the trash and start again later.
Yeah, it's really a 3-phase process. There's entry, entering all the participants in the different draws, and we've been fortunate that Brian Hash with the USDA has done that for us again this year. And so you have tournament entry, and you have all the correspondence that I've been doing over the last week with players and so on and so forth, and finding out their requests and whatnot. And then and that usually is done by Wednesday of the tournament week. And so then, Wednesday and part of Thursday, you're working on the draw itself and trying to make sure your draw is balanced. And we've talked about in the past, but even though it's not a seeded tournament, you want your best players to meet in the finals, not in the first round. And so you go through that and do the draws, and then you get into scheduling, which is probably the most time-consuming part is trying to make sure you're playing certain draws early so you can get people done at a decent hour, and you have to avoid the times that people are playing other divisions and so on and so forth. So it's really kind of 3, maybe even 4 phases to put the draws out by Thursday night. And so I had already done some of that, but the lion's share of the work I didn't really want to repeat if I didn't have to. And if there's a chance that we could have got it in Saturday, you do it. But the way that things looked all week long, it was like it would just feel like a waste of time, really.
Yeah. As a CKTS representative, I'm disappointed that I don't get to go to Bowling Green this weekend. As a player, I'm especially disappointed because I had some doubles lined up that I was excited about competing in. And I know that the players in general will be disappointed, but it's worth mentioning that really nobody hates this situation more than a tournament director. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not happy to make this decision because we had a great draw. I'd have to go back and look, but we were pretty close to our record in terms of since we've been on the CKTS tour. We had very close to 150 players. That put us well north of 200 entries, probably closer to 225, which makes it one of our biggest tournaments. So we had a great draw. We had here's an indication that other tournament directors and people who keenly participate in the CKTS will understand. We had multiple players in women's open singles.
Oh, wow.
I think we had 5 people signed up for women's open singles.
That has to be a record.
Yeah, we didn't have any draws that didn't make.
Wow.
I think we had a couple where we just had 2 teams, but we had some really good draws, and see, that's the thing. I mean, I know that if we had just moved it to next weekend, we wouldn't have had nearly as good of a tournament. So this gives us a little bit of time to do the financial part and maybe get some more sponsorships and maybe try to get some word out locally, advertising the events. It's going to be a new tournament date and so on and so forth. So hopefully we can make the best of it for September. But yeah, I would have loved to have played this weekend. I would have loved if we had great weather because we had the new facility we were going to use, and we had a great tournament draw. So you're right. Tournament directors don't like to have to do what we had to do.
Now, do you expect that the locations will be the same?
I'm pretty sure. Obviously, Kariakis will use. We've started checking into that. I don't know that we have definitive answers, but I mean, I'm I'm pretty confident that we're definitely going to be able to use Kariakis. I don't know about Greenwood. Greenwood's what we're kind of waiting to hear back on because when we got the dates from them for the summer, we just looked at the summer months. So we'll we'll let we'll let folks know. We'll put that on the website as soon as we get a confirmation on that. But I'm pretty confident we'll be at the same two locations.
Well, on the bright side, this gives us something to look forward to in late September for a CKTS season that was going to end in mid-September. Now we get a couple of extra weeks out of it at a time of year when it's starting to cool down a little bit, and a lot of people actually enjoy playing more than in the hot part of the summer. Of course, you're up against hurricane season, but I don't want to jinx it this early, so I'll just leave it at that. And so you're at the point now where over the next couple of days, you pretty much root for rain. Am I right?
Oh yeah. I mean, we've had a little today. The forecast was for rain, and we really haven't got a whole lot. So I want it to rain. I want it to rain nonstop.
You don't want to be wrong. I get it. I mean, yeah.
As a high school coach, I've been there before where you cancel things because the rain ends up sunny. But I'm pretty confident that we're going to get plenty of rain this weekend to justify the decision.
All we have is the forecast, and we could look at different sources on that. We're recording this after 3 p.m. on Thursday the 6th, and looking at, the forecast for 2 days from now. At one source, it says 100% chance of rain on Saturday, 100% chance of rain on Sunday, and also Friday night, which if it rains Friday night overnight, that kills you for Saturday morning.
Yeah, it makes our volunteers really have to hit the ground running to get the courts dry. Friday night, early Saturday morning rain is almost worse than like Saturday night rain because, if you have a shower Saturday afternoon or Saturday night, there's a good chance you've got a good bulk of your tournament done.
Yes.
So that's actually better. Friday night rain, especially if you have to delay when you can start, it really makes things a mess.
And another source I'm looking at is showing 70% chance of storms on Friday night and 80% chance of rain on Saturday, 70% chance of rain and storms on Sunday. So this doesn't look good no matter the source that you check out. So
yeah, and what I've learned to do over the years is you kind of watch patterns and how things trend, and you can kind of see if they're not as confident in what it's going to do. And really anything 40% or lower, I don't like to cancel things because, and this kind of goes back to high school tennis, I don't really like to cancel it because 40% means there's a 60% chance that it doesn't rain.
Right.
But when you're constantly above 70 and 80% for the majority of your weekend, it's really tough to think that there's any way to get a tournament in, especially a tournament this size.
So let me read the actual press release that you sent to me. And so this morning after, you made this decision, I put on a pot of coffee, sat down at the computer, and started updating all the social media and the website for CKTS. So here's the announcement. We regret to announce that due to the weather forecast of rain throughout the weekend, we have made the difficult decision to postpone this weekend's tournament. With a larger than usual number of players prevented from participating next weekend due to the USTA Adult Championships in Louisville, we are moving the tournament to the end of the CKTS Tour calendar. The 2019 Bowling Green Open, presented by Med Center Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, will now be played September 28th and 29th. Registration will reopen on September 16th. So basically, are we going to start all over with registration?
Yeah, I mean, there's really no other way to do it, and that would be the case if we postponed it to next weekend.
I agree.
Everybody has to sign up because you lose so many people, and it's harder to keep track of who's staying and who's going. You don't want to make a mistake if you can't get in touch with somebody. So regardless, when you lose a weekend like this, everybody has to re-register, which is a huge hassle. At least in this case, by moving to September, we'll give people the normal, 2 weeks that they get to, or or 10 days, I guess, to register. If we were to move it to next weekend, we'd have to, shrink that to about 5 days, of which people could get registered for the tournament.
This has been a tough string of luck for CKTS tournaments and weather. This is actually, if you go back to the end of last year, this is the third tournament in a row that has been moved due to rain. But I know that we're not the only community tennis association being affected by rain. For example, Lake Cumberland Tennis Association, I take my son Carson there to youth clinics on Thursday nights, and last Thursday they had to cancel for rain, and they're looking seriously at canceling tonight because of impending rain moving in. So it happens, and at Bowling Green in a couple of years, maybe this won't matter.
Yeah, we talked on the last podcast about the indoor courts, and if we had a 6-court indoor facility, we might have to modify some things to get a tournament of this size in. I think the indoor courts would really help us in the case of if we got rain and we needed to get some matches on. I'm still not sure what we would do with as much rain as we have in the forecast, because the reason why Kariakis and Greenwood are such great sites is because you can get so many more matches played with 8 or 10 courts. You drop that down to 6 courts. For the region tournament, when we were deciding whether we were going to use Greenwood or Warren Central, it was the difference of about 4.5 hours from when we would finish by using the 10-court facility as opposed to the 6. So that might give people a little understanding of, if we were to try to do a tournament as large as this one is at a 6-court indoor facility, we pretty much have to be open. We'd have to go from open to close to try to get those matches in.
Thank you for sitting down here to explain what's going on. I think that people definitely need to understand that this is not just a snap decision, that you've been thinking about this all week. And
yeah, I hope folks can make it down in September, and obviously we have the tournament in August as well. So sorry I can't control the weather. If I could, I'd be in a much higher tax bracket.
Absolutely. Well, here's what's coming up on the calendar. The Barron Classic is the second. Well, it'll be the first stop now on the CKTS 2019 tour. The Barron Classic, that's in Glasgow, Kentucky. It's June 22nd and 23rd. Entries are going to open in just a few days. On Monday, June the 10th, the entries will open for the Barron Classic, and the deadline will be 6 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday, June 18th. Tuesday, June 18th deadline for the Barron Classic. You can visit CKTStour.com for that tournament and for all of our tournaments, or to purchase your CKTS membership or tour pass. A couple things coming up with USTA Kentucky that were mentioned earlier in the week that are worth mentioning again. The 2019 League Championships are upon us. The adult 18 and over will be June 14th and 16th. Again, one of the reasons for our Bowling Green Open postponement to be in September instead of just the following week later in June. Registration has passed for the adult 18 and over league championships, but the adult 40 and over championships are scheduled for June 21st through the 23rd in Lexington, and the registration deadline for that is June the 12th. Registration's also open for UK Tennis Camp in June. You can visit ukathletics.com under the tennis and news sections for that. To keep up with USTA Kentucky, visit kentuckytennis.com or follow at USTA Kentucky on Facebook and Twitter. You can send us your tennis events to info@gamesetmatchky.com. That's if you're having a clinic, a camp, some kind of tennis social event or tournament, let us know and we'll announce it on the podcast. Also, if you have a question for an upcoming edition of Challenge the Call, please send an email to challenge@gamesetmatchky.com, and we'll answer your question here on the podcast. That's going to serve out another episode of this podcast. We want to thank you for listening and ask you to please subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcast, Google, Spotify. Leave us a review You can visit GameSetMatchKentucky.com for all episodes and show notes of this podcast. We'd like for you also to follow us on Twitter at GameSetMatchKY and like our Facebook page by looking for Game Set Match Kentucky, the podcast. Chad, real quick, tomorrow morning, so we're recording this June 6th. It's about 3:30 in the afternoon now. Tomorrow at 5 a.m. Central Time in the French Open at Roland Garros, Roger Federer versus Rafael Nadal. Who you got?
You got to go with Rafa. The guy's won 11 French Open titles. Yeah, I don't believe. I believe Federer can beat him on clay. I just don't think it's going to happen tomorrow.
Okay, well, I'll just for the sake of argument, I'll take Roger Federer. We'll see how it goes out. We'll talk about it next time. And until next time, I'm Chris Godby, and I've been with Chad Young here, and this has been Game Set Match Kentucky.